Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We are so excited to have this rescheduled in such quick order, rescheduled panel discussion for our Women Build Dallas initiative. And this panel will address how to be a change maker in your community. So as I've had a chance to talk with some of these panelists, you know, we have families, we have work, we have extracurricular activities. There are so many things that we're called to do as women. And so sometimes when we're asked to do one more thing, we think, oh my goodness, how can I do that? How can I actually be a change maker? My plate is already full. And so these women are going to talk a little bit about how they are change makers in the community. And then they're also going to tell you a little bit about how you can be a change maker through the Women Build Dallas initiative. So Women Build Dallas is a program of Dallas Area Habitat for Humanity. And we started this program to address the fact that about 70% of the clients that are served by Dallas Habitat are women single head of household. And about 41% of those women are single moms. And about 91% of those women are women of color. And so we felt like this was an important conversation to have in this community. So this is the second in our series of curated events and discussions that focus on Women Build. And we've got some powerful panelists today and an incredible moderator. You are going to have such a great time. In the end of this all, our goal is to raise funds to support the programs of Dallas Area Habitat, education, financial education for women who are seeking a better place, a better life, a better financial situation, and ultimately home ownership, a better place to live for their families and their children. We're also funding a new construction for a really wonderful young woman whom you'll meet in just a second. And we are also providing funding for advocacy, neighborhood empowerment, and so many other things that help launch women on their way to a better situation in life. So we're so thrilled that you're here to join us and to have this conversation with us. It is my pleasure to thank some of our sponsors that we already have signed on board. Mr. Cooper Hilty, thanks to our chair and vice chair this year, Next Bank, Tollison Wealth, Iberia Bank, Lowe's, and Mentor More Foundation. So thanks so much to those sponsors, and we'll give another shout out to them at the end of our program. Now it's my distinct pleasure to introduce you to Tracy Garrison, who is going to be our Women Build homeowner for 2021. Tracy is a young woman, a single mom of 2 boys. She's an LVN at Parkland Hospital, so she's a frontline worker, and she is studying to have her full nursing degree. So we're so excited that she's going to be the proud owner of our new Women Build home that we will begin to build with volunteers on April 9th. So if you'll join me in watching this video, Tracy couldn't be here. She's got work today. But she sends us all her best wishes, and she's thrilled and excited to be part of the program and also to meet each of you. So if you'll join me in watching this quick video, we'll get another glimpse into Tracy's life.
Hi, my name is Tracy. This is Grayson, and this is Marcus.
Hello.
Say hi.
So we have Macaroni Monday, Taco Tuesday, and Fun Day Sunday, where we have ice cream Sundays. Sit Down Saturday, where we're having pizza, and Nacho Friday.
I love that we have traditions now, but I think when they're able to be a part of them and create their own, we have our own house and it's just us, we can make our own new traditions. So I'm really excited about starting traditions also. I think we close around Christmas and Halloween, so he's excited to put candy out for kids to come trick or treat and also put lights on our home for our first Christmas in our home. So I'm excited also. We went to a couple of locations, but this specific area I liked. My dad is from the area, so he stays about 2 to 3 blocks down from the actual lot that I chose. They're also building a new school there, and I was really interested in Marcus going to a school that I liked that was close to home. So I like that. The area is up and coming also, so I did like that aspect of it. And I did see a lot of other empty lots, so I'm assuming that Habitat is planning to build more homes there. So I look forward to living in that neighborhood. It means that my kids will have a better future. I believe that kids need stability. Growing up, you want somewhere safe to stay. You want somewhere where your kids can go outside and you feel comfortable. Your neighbors are nice. Everyone's nice. The neighborhood is nice. And I think buying a home is a really, really important goal to accomplish, because you know you always have somewhere to go. Your kids always have somewhere to go. It's yours. You own it. And what I to women who will go through this process in the future, when I first looked into Habitat, I wasn't really sure. Like, I didn't know the details. One of my coworkers actually told me about it. But once I started going through the process, it became really easy. Like, home buying is a big thing, and sometimes it could be intimidating. But when I started going through the process with Habitat, it became less intimidating for me. So I would say for someone looking into the process to stick with it, Porfirio has been like the best person. He has kept me on track and with getting things done and sticking to the process with my action plan. I have started saving so much more, not buying things thinking, oh, okay, I don't need this, I can save this. And I think getting approved was the biggest thing for me. My goal of buying a house became more real. I would like to say thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm really excited. This means a lot to me and my family and me and my children. And I just want to say thank you. And I'm really excited to start this building and meet everyone face to face. I do plan on attending the events coming up, and I hope to meet everyone, and I look forward to it.
So if you're wondering how you can be a change maker, I tell you what, Tracy is something special. And by participating in Women Build, you can be a change maker in her life and in lives of women just like her. So goodness gracious, what a wonderful, wonderful video. I'm so excited to meet Tracy. She's just, like I said, she's just something special. Okay, well, without further ado, we are going to introduce you to our incredible moderator, Lady Jade. Lady Jade is a syndicated DJ on K104. She is a ball of energy. She is a powerful force in this community, and she's just an incredible, gifted speaker, but also a woman on a mission to make a change in her community in so many ways. And so we are grateful to have her here, and she's going to introduce you to our panelists, and we're going to have a great, great discussion. Lady Jade, take it away.
Thank you so much, Carmen. I really appreciate that. Everybody, we are about to start Women Build Dallas 2021, and I am so excited to be here today. As I'm watching the video with Tracy and her two sons, I'm thinking to myself, that is what it's all about. You know, we get blessed and we get put in these certain positions, and you have amazing, amazing partners like Habitat for Humanity that want to give and build our community. So that was such an inspirational video. I don't know if Tracy and Marcus are able to watch this morning, but Marcus, I definitely want to be invited to the Macaroni Mondays and the Taco Tuesdays. That was, I like that. I'm going to have to implement that in my house as well. Well, I am not going to extend this intro because I am absolutely excited about introducing you guys to our panel today. We have a bunch of heavy hitters in the building, but not only are they heavy hitters, they are human, and they are humans fighting for women. And I love that they all have a heart to make change in our community. That's what today is all about. So I'm going to jump right in, and I cannot wait for you to meet everybody. Some of them I already knew, some are familiar faces, some I did not. So today is going to be like a big girlfriends chat. I just want you guys to know, I know a lot of you are at home. Maybe you're in your office watching. I can't tell you to grab your wine. It's like 10:15 in the morning. So go grab you a cup of coffee, go grab you a drink. And I want you to feel free in the chat to pose your questions, because we are literally going to have a discussion, and we want you to walk away from today feeling inspired, re-inspired. We want to reignite that fire inside of you that may have, maybe dwindled away just a little bit because of all the changes that are going on in the world right now, right? So without further ado, our first panelist for today is Kellyanne Dougherty, who is a 2021 Women Build Chair. She is Chief People and Communications Officer for Mr. Cooper Group. And we also have Martina McIsaac, the region head and CEO of Hilti North America, also a 2021 Women Build Vice Chair. Thank you guys, Kellyanne Dougherty and Martina McIsaac, so much for being here on today. It is my pleasure. So great to meet you all. Also, we have Tier Suzuki, Client Service Partner at Ernst & Young, is joining us today, as well as AJ Barkley, Neighborhood Lending Executive for Bank of America, also a 2020 Women Build Chair. Thank you all for being here on today. Can you tell I'm excited? I am excited. I'm excited because I love to dig into the mind of super successful women, but successful women that have great stories. And I have to make a confession. I stalked every single one of you guys before I came here today because, I'm going to be honest. A lot of times we can read titles, we hear titles, and it could be super intimidating. And we have about 700 people that have registered for today's event. And they hear your titles and they may think to themselves, I just don't see how I can relate to these women. Like, some people think that you woke up and as soon as you got out of your mother's womb, you got your position, right? But it has definitely been a process. So I just want to share some fun facts with our audience so they kind of get a chance to get to know you. And I want you to share a little bit about yourself before we jump into our questions today. If you don't mind, do I have everybody's permission to kind of dig a little bit? Okay, good. Okay, I'm going to start with Kellyanne. Kellyanne, first of all, amazing title, Chief People and Communications Officer for Mr. Cooper Group. What exactly does that mean?
Oh, that's such a great question. It means that I am responsible for taking care of our people. And that really means both from an internal and an external perspective. So I lead the HR functions, everything from recruiting to training, to development, to promotions, to benefits, to the HR information systems. I lead the communications team, the social media team, the brand team, the government affairs team, and now also most recently the diversity and inclusion teams, which is such a passion of mine as well. So I cover a lot of different areas, but at the heart of all of that is just really putting our people front and center.
I love that. I was reading that you've been very vocal in fighting to close the gender wage gap, which amen to that. Also, you're being very humble, but I saw that you were selected as a 2020 Woman of Influence by Housing Wire Daily. Congratulations. And when you did come into this position right there at Mr. Cooper Group, one thing that I said, you know what? She is my spirit animal. Is it true that your hype song was a Beyonce song that you chose?
I mean, who run the world is probably many of the women on this call's hype song, and I absolutely chose it. We all have this series called Hanging with Jay because our CEO's name is Jay, but I get to do Hanging with KA, and you have to have a theme song. So of course, I wanted to lean in a big way. I recognize how important it is for women in leadership positions to show up for their fellow women, and that was my way of signaling to them that there was a lot of power and influence that we could achieve together. So, and I'm still rocking it.
Yeah, Beyonce, who run the world? Girls, of course, we all know this, right? No, I was like, look, shouts out to all the Beehivers that are watching today. All right, Martina, region head and CEO of Hilti North America. Tell us all what that means.
Yeah, so that means I'm a woman that runs a tool company. So
wow.
Not very many 4-year-old girls wake up and say, boy, I hope someday I run a tool company. But Hilti is a provider of tools and software and services to the professional contractors. So I have 4,000 amazing people in North America that do that every day. They're out on job sites and They are making construction safer and more productive. So we call it building a better future. And so that's what we do.
Okay, so I was reading about you that you had a super successful career. You started to build a family and you decided to step away from corporate America just for a little bit. So when you go back to, start your career again,
yeah,
all of a sudden you have this gap, right, in your resume. and which is so relatable. So many women can relate to that. So it was almost like you said, look, you guys, I was like a boss before, and y'all are not recognizing this because I have this gap in my resume. And so that was a struggle, right?
Yeah, pissed me off. But so I made the choice with my husband to stop traveling when my kids were young. And what worked for us was that he stayed in the corporate world and I stepped back, and I wouldn't change a minute. So if anybody listening is struggling, just make your own choice. Don't listen to anybody else. It's what's in your heart. That's what you have to do. And so when I was coming back to the workforce, it was a 5-year gap. And a recruiter actually asked me, how much of a discount rate will you take on your experience? And that's a real thing, right? That's out there. And so for me right now, one of the personal passions that I'm working on, I want to build strong alumni networks, within Hilti, but maybe influence other companies to do it too. People need sometimes to take that side step, and it doesn't mean that their brains turn off. They do other things. They engage with their community. They take care of their families. And if they choose to re-enter into the corporate world, and most of the people doing that are women, we need to have a very smooth on-ramp for them. And so that's something that I hope to change.
Which it led probably into your initiative. I do understand that you also led an initiative during the pandemic to support parents with school-age children. There's been a huge pivot. I know one of my best friends has 2 kids at home. She works from home and she's also homeschooling. So the fact that you made that pivot and adjustment for your employees is amazing.
Yeah. I mean, we all know that the pandemic hit women hard, and the jobs lost were, predominantly with women. And what I love is that the topic of, hey, working parents are real. they face, they're teaching 3rd grade algebra. Let's figure out how to support them. I remember when my kids were young, if I could manage to get out the door with 2 shoes that matched in the morning, I figured I was doing well. And now, we're having to run our whole lives from our living rooms. And so, I think there's easy things, not really challenging things, just choices companies can make to make it easier for working parents. And I was really happy to have this platform at this moment to try to do that.
That's amazing. Thank you. And thank you everybody for being here today. Miss Suzuki, Tia Suzuki, you are the client service partner at Ernst & Young. That sounds really, really fancy. What does that mean exactly?
Thanks, Jade. So first of all, Ernst & Young is a professional services company, and we specialize in accounting work, tax work, transactions, so mergers and acquisitions, and also consulting. And so in my role as a client service partner, what that means is I have responsibility of building client relationships with companies and organizations that we're looking to provide professional services to. So that could be anything from supply chain to finance to HR to technology and digital transformation. So I started my career in consulting straight out of college, and so it's a great learning ground, not only for business but also from an overall life standpoint.
And you mentioned relationships. I thought it was really cool. I was reading that you led a project engaging men in the conversation about invisible gender differences and pretty much how men can be allies for us to help solve the gender equity issues. I think that's amazing. I think a lot of times as women, women are rallying together, fighting for women, right? But you're bringing the men into the conversation saying, if you don't stand up for us, there may not be a change. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. I appreciate that. It was really encouraging reading part of your story, because in a couple of different articles I was reading that I guess when you first got possibly into the workforce, you struggled wondering if you were as courageous as your coworkers, if you were as smart as your coworkers. And I think every woman at some point in our career, we have struggled with self-doubt, but we just don't say it, right? And so I absolutely appreciate your vulnerability and your transparency with that. And I was like, okay, like I'm not by myself, right? That
Absolutely.
So how did you push past that?
Well, it's been quite a journey, for sure. And so my family came to the United States as refugees from Cambodia, which is a third world country in Southeast Asia. And we survived 4 years of a genocide that took place there in the mid-70s, and lived in refugee camps for about 2 years. And then we were sponsored by an aid organization here in Dallas. So that was how we ended up here. So I came to this country not speaking English, not knowing anybody, and very much felt that I was lesser than. And so it was all about survival. And my parents worked multiple minimum wage jobs in order to raise 5 children in a country that they know nothing about. And they didn't understand the system or anything. And so for each of us, we were basically on our own, with the exception of my parents providing, a roof over our heads and food. I became very independent early on in terms of figuring out how I was going to survive. And in survival mode, you don't really think about being brave and thinking about being courageous and raising your voice about things that you care about. It was just heads down, get my work done. Hopefully people will notice and recognize me for that. So it took a while for me to get to this point where I'm privileged to be speaking alongside the other panelists here. And it took a lot of leadership development and support and mentorship and sponsorship from others.
Look at you now, right? Look at you now. Ladies, I just want to let you know, literally our chat is already blowing up. You are already inspiring. We are literally like 5 minutes into the program. I haven't even gotten to the script yet, okay? We haven't even gone over like any of our supposed to questions. So this is what today is all about. And last but certainly not least, my sorority sister, Miss AJ Barkley, who neighborhood lending executive for Bank of America. Now I was reading about you that this literally, you consider this a dream job, right?
Yes.
Tell everybody why this is like a dream job for you.
So I get the phenomenal opportunity every day to create strategies and tactics to help people realize the power of home ownership. I was almost crying listening to Tracy, because everything she was talking about is what a lot of people go through and try to figure out. And so I focus on providing solutions on behalf of Bank of America for low to moderate income, multicultural, and first-time home buyers, which the common theme there is everybody wants to be able to build a legacy for their family, a legacy of being able to have your house, barbecue in your backyard. You heard everything around Halloween, all of the things that Tracy said. I was like, man, Tracy, you're talking to me. So it is my opportunity, phenomenal opportunity to do this. And the other reason I really like this is Tracy mentioned that it's hard and, home ownership is hard. I think what I like the most is I get to demystify that process and help people realize that dream and know that they can do it. And that's the phenomenal work that Habitat does as well. And so, I love my job. I don't tell the bank because I still want to be paid for it, but I literally love what I do each and every day with my colleagues and teammates across the country. And I support lending across the entire country.
Well, that's the game we play. We want them to, we enjoy it. It's okay. But really, we're like, yes, I love getting up and going to work every morning, but I need you to pay me more, as if I'm not as happy as I am, right?
That's right.
I love that. There was something that you said in an article, and you describe success as paying it forward and being vulnerable by sharing good and bad experiences so others can benefit from them. And I think that a lot of times people say success is money. People say success may be fame, but yours is about paying it forward. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate everyone on here, your willingness to share your stories, because I'm telling you, look, shout out to Amy Salazar that says, ladies, you all have lifted my chin in less than 10 minutes. Thank you. Tamara is saying, this is awesome. I cannot wait for the information to be shared. Alicia Young says, I am soaking it all up. I am already so inspired. So that's what today is all about. So I'm going to jump into our questions. And again, I want everybody that's watching, please feel free. If you have any questions, we're going to try our best to get to as many as possible. Also, we're just going to jump in. So anybody feel free to take the questions at any given time. Okay. So let's start by acknowledging the tremendous toll the past year has taken on women. As you guys have also acknowledged, data in multiple studies tell us that women are maxed out across the country. Think about it. We're dealing with work, we're dealing with childcare, family, finances, so on and so forth. So how do women like you create the balance? How do you balance it all? And how do you find the time and energy to literally just take on one more thing? Because every day there's one more thing. It never ends, right?
Well, I'll jump in by saying that I'm not doing it well at all. I don't know that any of us would
so
say
real, Kellyanne. That is so real.
I mean, it's been really hard. This year has been hard, and it's been admittedly much easier on me than I know a lot of other people, because we've had a great year as a company and we've been able to hire people, which is really uplifting to me. But there's a lot of people in our community who've dealt with lost jobs, family members getting really sick, some family members dying, and then in the events of last week, now their homes potentially being damaged. So there's been so much that's come at us on top of all of the things that we're typically responsible for. So I think that it's okay to say, this is really hard. This year has been tough. And the only reason why I think I'm able to find that extra space is because when you think about what our purpose is, what my purpose is, it's really to help change lives. And I've decided to just like start taking that a lot more granularly. And that means that my goal every day is just to change one life for the better, or make one person's day a little bit better. Because when you think about it at the individual level, the amplification effect of that is so amazing and tremendous. And so for everybody that's on here today, if you feel lifted up, you're then going to take that energy and lift somebody else up. And that type of momentum is really how we start to see change on a mass scale. So for me, it's just about doing one good thing a day that could maybe change one person's life for the better. And to me, that's worth it.
Oh, I'm writing that down because, you know, we think if we're not changing the world, we're not making a change.
That's right.
And so just making that, creating that small goal for ourselves. And look, we'll come home, and as long as we're super intentional about, we feel like we have accomplished something, and what better feeling than to accomplish it for somebody else. You know what? I'm stealing that from you. My goal for the day is to do something good for somebody else. I love that. Anybody else? How are you guys finding the time and the energy just to take on one more thing?
So I would add to this, Kellyanne, I would say, I love what you mentioned, because I think that is absolutely important. But I think a lot of also to add, I think a lot of times people look to their leaders from a work environment to tell them what's going on. So I love your vulnerability. I think it is extremely important that we're vulnerable, because our teams, our colleagues think it's something wrong with them because they're struggling over the last year. And they think that the more senior you are, the more perfect you are, and the more perfect your world is. And so I think it has been helpful for me, at least, as I've been very vulnerable this year, more than ever. And I spent every week, I would meet with my team and on Zoom, and whatever we just banned pajamas, but short of pajamas, we would, be on Zoom and we would just talk. And then there's just really, I think sometimes people just needed to know it wasn't just them. And then we shared with each other some of the subtle things that was important to each other, because someone just needed, in many cases, to exhale. And they needed to know how to get to the next day and how to create change. Many of us have been working remote for over a year now, for those of us that are used to being outside of the workplace. And so I do think it's important. Again, vulnerability is important, but simple things, Kellyanne, you mentioned, like something really simple and manageable today that helps someone to get through the next day. And we all have drama, and and talk through that drama, and then resources that your company, whichever that company is, to leverage those resources and tools. Don't be ashamed to seek out, if you need to talk to someone. And I would just encourage that. And that's what has helped us, myself personally, and our team, because it's nothing that we would have imagined for this period of time.
That's such a really great
point. I think that, sorry. I just can't wait. I got to build on what AJ said. The thing is, this is a moment in time, right? And you said, how do we have the energy to do it? Honestly, this one silver lining of this COVID moment is that It's okay to talk about mental health in the workplace, right? It's okay to talk about working parents. It's okay to be exactly who I am reacting to COVID in front of all these people. If we got to seize this moment, we've been fighting for it and begging for it, right? And now we're at a situation where the characteristics people are looking for in their leaders are the ones that we have innately and we need to nurture. And so it's like we have jumped into this space, and now we got to hold on and keep opening the door wider. So that's what fuels me. That's why it doesn't feel like one more thing. It feels like the thing we've been waiting for. So,
yeah, the permission, right? The permission to finally talk about it. Because there was already stress involved. There was already, like Kellyanne said earlier, like, I'm not doing it well, but we just couldn't say it publicly before. It wasn't acceptable. And now we actually can. And that is somewhat of a relief. That's awesome. Okay, so let's talk about like you're mentioning mental health. Even I'm so sorry because I almost messed up your name. We talked about that earlier. Tier mentioned earlier about dealing with self-doubt and how she overcame. Let's talk about overcoming self-doubt and managing schedules. And does anybody have any maybe tactics or tips to share with our audience about that management and how to push past?
Maybe I'll share. And if I can just comment on the last question too. I recently spoke to a young woman who gave birth to her fourth child. So 4 children under 7 she has, and both she and her husband worked full time. And she asked me, how did you do it because I also have 4 kids. I have 4 boys, one in high school, one in college, one in middle school, one in elementary school. And I told her, listen, Althea, you have 4 kids under 7 during COVID. You know, I didn't have COVID to have to fight through and work through. So give yourself a break. So I think that's something that we women need to remember. We try to do it all. We try to be everything to everybody. And I saw a comment from someone in the audience about having 4 kids as well. I think it was Shannon, and that you want to take care of everybody else. It is critically important that we give ourselves a break and take care of ourselves. And that may mean eating your lunch, or that may mean taking your bath, and that may mean getting enough sleep, because unless we take care of ourselves, we can't be optimal in terms of being able to help take care of others. So for me, from a schedule standpoint, yes, my life is pretty full with work and family, as well as community things that I care about. So I put everything on my calendar. So we talk about managing schedules. I manage my calendar, and I manage my energy. So not just managing time. And what that means for me is making sure that I have things that I'm doing that inspires me on a daily basis, things that I can be grateful for. And I also put, kind of things that we normally would think as personal things. I view it as part of work. And so to me, getting my 10,000 steps every day is part of work. Sleep is part of work. I used to not do those things and haven't been able to do them consistently because I thought of it as something separate from what I needed to do at work. But I've come to realize that to be optimal, it's part of my responsibility, right? To take care of myself.
No, Tears, it's interesting you said this because women just function differently. It's this whole, Barbara Ennis is a great author that wrote a book that really is around the 7 pitfalls for women. And I love how you talked about how you schedule things. We feel like we have to over-explain everything. It is just innate in us. And if I needed to take my child to the doctor, I'm talking in today's environment or just in general, we have to explain, we feel the need to explain why we have to, step away for 30 minutes or an hour. We feel like we have to explain why our child was sick and why we couldn't do, we over explain. And this is a generalization. So if there are any men on here, don't hate me, but men don't do that. They just, I got this meeting, I'm leaving early today. Now, granted, that might mean if you're in the office or out of the office, but we tend to want to explain our whereabouts and how we're managing our schedule much more than men. Again, Barbara Ennis wrote a book about what we need to just really be more we put so much of a burden on ourselves in terms of what we do. And I agree with you. I did not schedule things. And so then I would not do the self-care things that we know we need to do. And then I also thought what was important in this environment, scheduling and managing it all, is I have a daughter who's a senior in high school. And we have to be able to model great, because our kids and people around us may not know what great looks like, and model great in this environment. Because like you said earlier, it's just a very different environment. But I think scheduling is fine. Now, do you need to put on your calendar that you're getting a manicure at 4 o'clock in the afternoon? Maybe you don't need to put exactly what it is, but if you have a personal appointment, you should be able to schedule that, give yourself prep time. And the only other thing that I did that has helped, because I don't leave my house, I moved like 10 feet from one room to this to work. And I don't know if everyone else has that, but I did build in some prep time for meetings, because typically I would have, mental time driving in and mental time driving home. And so I've tried to build in some time so I can get my thoughts together. And you just have to stay with it as much as possible. Now, every day doesn't look the same. And then you may have a good day, you may have a bad day. Do not beat yourself up if you don't, do your 10,000 steps, which thank you for reminding me too. I'm short of those.
She just shamed all of us, didn't she?
I know, I'm feeling really bad. But, I do think that we should give ourselves, we should do that. And we should make sure as much as possible. And if you miss it one day, just catch it up the next day.
One thing that Tyr said that I absolutely loved was that she manages her time, but also her energy, because they're not the same thing. And we all are guilty of being really busy all the time. And I think focusing on the energy usage and where you need to be putting your time is really a great way to better manage, not just what you're doing every single day, but how you're going to feel about what you've accomplished. I'm going to take that. I'm going to steal it. I'm using that. I love that. And as for manicures on my calendar, I just call them appointment. And I know what
personal appointments.
That's right.
I got the best advice from a really wise woman. And she said, our lives are changing so fast, so they don't look like the lives of a lot of our role models, so if you try to run your life in your house the way maybe your mother did, she probably wasn't running a tool company, so it looks so different. And she said, you're missing all the joy in your life because you've got this super long list of things that you think you have to get done in order to be good at this. And what you need to do is pick the 1 or 2 things that really matter, and then be consequent on those, and in particular, she was talking about raising your kids, but I have now sort of brought it through my whole life. But she said, those, put your energy and attention there, and honestly, let the rest go, because you'll be so much happier and you'll enjoy the time that you have. And I catch myself sometimes, but that's kind of my rule, to go back to say, hey, am I chasing something right now that really should be on the let it go list? Or, is this really something that matters that I need to dig in and invest on?
Martina, I think the other point there to energy that Tyr said, we sometimes put, I'll speak for myself. I used to put so much energy in my frustration around a meeting, an activity, and an engagement with someone that just drove me crazy. I used to, it would be like a meeting before the meeting and a meeting after the meeting. So you're so frustrated, so you call 6 people to try to get yourself through whatever it is. I have decided, I love your point here around the energy, because I have intentionally said, let it go and move on to the next thing. And that's because we try to be perfect, women in general. And it goes back to the earlier comment about being an imposter. The imposter syndrome is real for women. We feel like we cannot fail. We feel like the threshold of our success is just very different. And so I think we let things ruminate, or we just kind of don't let it go enough. And that actually taps into, to your point, our energy. And so kind of letting some of those things go, or just face it, talk to the person that irritated you, if that's the case, to get it off your chest. But I do think, right? Because sometimes we don't do that, and they keep doing the bad behavior. So you need to go address it. But I think putting that energy in a positive place versus being frustrated is also important.
That's really good. Kaylee in the chat said, I like the analogy of juggling plastic and glass balls. The glass balls are the things that can't be dropped, like our family, kids, spouse, self, and the plastic balls can occasionally be dropped if needed. I love that analogy. I've never thought about that. That's great. Um, I, I'm one of those people that I also run myself into the ground. Like literally, I don't make time in between schedules. I'm like logging off of this, logging on to something else, and to the point of like I'm pulling my hair out. And I remember my best friend last year stopping me and she said, "You can't keep going like this. You need to do what Michelle Obama did." And I'm like, "What?" Like, I was like, "Ma'am, I'm stressed. I don't want to hear that right now." She said at the beginning of the year, there was an interview and Michelle Obama said, before the year even begins, she schedules her off time. She literally writes it on her calendar and schedules her off time. Now, Michelle Obama can do it weeks at a time. I can't do that. I'm on the radio, but I had to set aside weekends where I said, no matter what event comes up, no matter how much money they're going to pay me, no matter how bad I want to do it, no matter who's going to be there, I have scheduled this time off and I have to have enough belief in God and enough belief in myself to know that I deserve this rest. And so that really helped get me through 2020 last year. And I'm trying to apply that again this year. Also, I just want to tell everybody there is an app. Okay. We all have apps on our phone. There's an app called Calm. It's an amazing app. I don't know. Have you guys used it? Okay. Yeah. And like literally when you start it, it's going to be very specific to your needs. So whether it's you need reducing of anxiety, build your self-esteem, increase happiness, better sleep, reduce stress, any of those type of things. So it's going to tailor everything towards what it is that you need. So I just, putting that out there because it can really help. One of the things I struggle with is sleep and just getting rest at night. So definitely check into the app called Calm. I want to talk about young women. There's a lot of young people on here today that are watching. They want to be in your position. So let me ask you, what would you say is a most important piece of advice that you can give to a young person who is trying to be a change maker, trying to make change in the world? AJ, I'm going to start with you on this one.
I think that you can start small. I think a lot of times people think that they have to have their own nonprofit and, try to change the world. Think about those things that are important to you and participate. It could be participation in volunteer work. It could be participation on, depending on what your skill set is. There's a lot of nonprofit organizations that need the intellectual capital from for-profit businesses on how to organize, how to get work done. And I would start small. Don't overwhelm. We just had that conversation about your schedule. So don't overwhelm yourself, but take a small step forward. And one of the things very early in my career, well, first of all, my sorority, Delta Sigma Theta, is a public service sorority. So that's what we do. That's what I was surrounded by. And that was a passion for me from a younger age. But when I think about what I do now, again, your energy, your time, I do things that I'm personally passionate about. And so I would say start small, understand what's important to you, participate in a nonprofit if that's important, volunteer. You can even volunteer virtually now. So there's lots of things you can do and just figure it out. There's not a wrong or right answer here. Don't be guilted into doing more than you can handle, because then you won't feel as satisfied and the organization that you're participating in, won't necessarily get the best of you. And that's where I would start. I think you can also work with your companies, your organizations. They probably have organizations that they support. That's another way to get engaged. And then one last point, you had mentioned, Lady Jade, about my point around paying it forward. Another way to participate, even if you're not necessarily helping with nonprofits and things like that, reach back and pull someone forward that is actually looking at you in terms of your career, and they may only need 30 minutes a month or a quarter just to hear what you did and how you achieved the role that you have and what is some of the skill sets that they need to hone in on. So you can volunteer externally to help people, but you also can help individuals with their careers, et cetera. Don't take it for granted that you can't add value to someone, a colleague and others.
Sure. That's
AJ, I feel like you're in my head because everything that I thought about as well. And if I can share a story to amplify all the points that AJ just shared. I mentioned that I grew up as a refugee. Well, I guess I'm still a refugee, but I grew up taking. I grew up receiving help from others, whether it be donated clothes or free lunches or whatnot. So I wasn't used to giving. And it took me a long time to come to the realization that I had something to give.
Oh, that's so good.
So some in our audience here may feel like, what do I don't have anything to give. And AJ's point about each of us having something to give is just so important to surface here, because we all have talents, we all have gifts that we can offer to the world. I was invited to, here's my story. I was invited by a mentor of mine to a nonprofit event for like 5 years. And I would always say yes, and I would always go because I could hang out with my coworkers and eat really good free food. So for 5 years, I did that. And never once did I donate anything. 1 year, or the 5th year, I donated, and it wasn't even a donation. It was buying something at a silent auction. I had this narrative in my head and in my life that I didn't have anything to give. And that was the obstacle for me. But when I took that first step, and, I bought something for my kids, it was like a toy or something. And I figured, well, it's for a good cause, and it wasn't that much, but it was that small step that removed the obstacle for me. And then it got easier after that. And then I had a hockey stick effect, a couple of years after that, from a giving standpoint. And I had believed before that philanthropy was for rich people. And I wasn't rich. So I've come to learn that philanthropy is about loving community. And so if you love community and you want to support others and help others, we can be philanthropists.
Are we gonna make it through today without shedding a tear? Like, because I cannot even tell you how many. I'm over here fighting. This is, oof, Lord have mercy. Okay, somebody else has to speak now, because you guys, I am, and I'm reading these comments, and these women are, I'm so sorry. You're pouring, you're filling cups. I'm watching what the women are saying in the comments, and the, just women, men in general, whoever is watching today. And it's making me so happy, because we put together panels all the time, right? And sometimes it's to check the box. But today is different. Today is different because people need this. People definitely, I'm so sorry. This is so unprofessional, but I apologize. But this is just coming from the bottom of my heart. I don't think you all understand how many lives are going to be changed today. People you will never talk to, people you will never see, people you will never know, just because of your words. And what you did today is you gave your time, and you're giving your story. So, all right, I'm going to digress. I need somebody else to answer the question, please. I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm not an emotional person either, believe it or not. I'm really not, but today is just amazing. So yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that when you ask the first question, like, how do you find the time? Like, at the end of the day, it's really a selfish act. Yeah. Because for as much as everybody's feeling here, like, this is going to fill my cup. And I'm going to walk into my next meeting, which had 3 meetings to get ready for that meeting. And I'm sure I'll have 4 meetings to debrief after that meeting, as AJ was talking about. I'm going to go in walking, feeling so much stronger and more powerful. So it goes both ways, right? Like, my act of giving here of my time is really coming back to me tenfold. And that's, I think, something else to remember too, is just like what a gift it is to be in a position where you can pay it forward. Because I'll tell you, like, I'm feeling it right now, and I'm going to walk in feeling pretty powerful. And that means that maybe I can change even more lives today in a different sort of way. So, nobody wants to go after a tear in that story. But if I were to speak to the young women here about career growth, and I'd like to think of myself still as a young woman. So, with you. I would say that a couple of things really come to my mind. First, is like, no journey is linear. I think that you get in your head that you're supposed to go from here to here to here to here to here, and then that will be success. And I'm here to tell you that that's not the way that growth works. Growth takes you all over the place, and it's openness to that movement. It's openness to new experiences that are going to be what position you for your ultimate job or your ultimate career goal. And so embedded in that for young women, especially if you're in the place that you can do this, because I understand everybody has different obligations financially, it's to focus more on your experience bank over your bank account. I know a lot of women, especially in their 20s, they're like, oh, this job is going to pay me $40,000, but that one's going to pay me $45,000. I want that $45,000 job. And I say, which one is going to get you the best experience? Where are you going to grow the most? Because that 5,000 might feel like a lot today. And again, I understand that not everybody's in the position to be able to turn that money down, but if you can, really focus on what's going to grow you experience-wise as opposed to financially. And then the last thing I would say that's really benefited me, and this is something that my dad taught me early on, and that's to swim outside your lane. That's part of being out of a linear mindset, but I've always volunteered for things that weren't my job. And that's not to say that you should take on too much, but don't be afraid to try new things and take a little bit of a chance. And most importantly, bet on yourself. You have so many more gifts than you realize. You are so much more capable than you realize. And if you're willing to just raise your hand and jump in, it can really take you to some amazing places that you wouldn't have expected or planned otherwise. And so I really always try to force myself, even today, to try new things, learn new things, because in that growth mindset, you're always going to find ways to grow. It might not be what you thought it was going to look like, but it's still growth. And that's, I think, what's most important.
Oh man, that is
Jade,
excellent.
if I can share a favorite quote of mine that I live by now. I saw this quote a few years ago, and it was by Winston Churchill. And that is, we make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give. And so in our conversation here about our careers and our professional work life and our family life and giving back to the community and being a change agent, I think it's really important to interrogate what is success for each of us.
That's good. That's really, really good. I'm looking at everybody on the panel, and, a lot of you are pioneers in your position. You literally were the ones that kicked the door in, and you didn't stop kicking until the door opened up, and you continue to fight for women. You continue to fight for young ladies. So let's talk about that. There are so many young women that are going to have opportunities because you kicked the door in that you did not. So how does that inspire you each and every day when you get up? Because I'm like we've all mentioned, there are days that we just don't want to keep going, right? So it's like, oh gosh, I thought today was Saturday. It's Wednesday. Lord, my alarm went off again. So let's talk about how you're inspired when you look at the opportunities that young girls will have that maybe you didn't.
Sure, I'll start. I mean, it's funny. Yesterday I was online trying to order a present for my 8-year-old niece, and I was looking to buy her book. And there's probably 100 amazing, empowering books about strong female leaders in science, in aerospace, in medicine, and whatever. And it struck me yesterday. When I was a kid, I had probably 2 books about women. I literally sat back to think about it. I had a book about Clara Barton, who founded the American Red Cross, and I had a book about Harriet Tubman. And I think that was it. That was a whole list, right? There was nobody else I could look to. And there probably were, but we weren't as consequent about making that obvious and talking about it with our daughters and talking about it with young women. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I first got into leadership, I was also in an industrial company. Like, I was always in the room with everybody who looked like my dad and my grandfather. There was nobody that looked like me. And so it's such a privilege to be able to help build confidence in young female leaders, to tell my daughter, there's nothing you can't do. And it starts with these little silly things, like she has a bookshelf full of books about powerful women. She can come and listen on a panel like this. And so I think our job is to, there's two pieces to it. One is to and I think Tier said it, or maybe AJ, but look back and give a hand and pull women along. I think we still have work, though, to make our male colleagues comfortable that we're going to do that investment, that this is not scary, that this is not going to unbalance the playing field in some way. But what this is going to do is bring two rich halves of a whole together where they should be. And so that's kind of where my mind is when I think about it. So it's a personal activism around sponsoring and mentoring young women. Mm-hmm. And then it's also continuing to show what success can look like when we have diverse and different faces on the teams.
That's amazing.
I think so I'll answer it a little differently. If I looked at 20 years ago, my younger self, if I was going to give myself some coaching now, there'd be a couple things I would say. One, I would have taken more risk earlier in my career. And I would have taken jobs that traditionally men took because there was more risk. And again, I'm over 50. I'll just leave it at that. So, back when I had my kids, you only had 6 weeks of maternity leave, and it was horrible if you didn't even want to have a baby because you were seen as weaker because you were a woman and not a man, just all of those things. And I know this sounds like one of those I walked in the snow with no shoes story. That's not what I'm trying to do. My grandmother and mother would say, but I think the point is 20 years ago, I would have, if I could tell anyone that's new in their career and even not new in their career, Martina talked about what she did, right? Take the risk. Take the risk. It's okay to depend on yourselves. Now, I think you also now more so than ever, you really need to understand who you work for and the company you work for and their commitment to diversity and inclusion and their commitment to walk the talk in terms of who's running what in the organization. Are they supporting women entrepreneurs? Are they doing things actively to support the communities that they serve and live in? And I think those things, more people are more interested in that now than I think 20 years ago because people weren't as reflective of that. And so I think it is important. Otherwise, you'll be unhappy potentially. I'm not saying any company's perfect, right? Everybody has opportunities, but I think that's important. So I would have done that 20 years ago. I would have made a different decision. The last thing I would say that I think we got to get good with ourselves. People take risk, or when someone says to you, when you're talking about your career and you're meeting with them, and they're like, oh yeah, well, we'll give you this opportunity, but there's a risk of giving you the opportunity. They don't say that to everyone when you're given an opportunity for a role. So I always tell people, when you're working with your manager and you're working on your development plans and you're trying to think about your next job, and write this down because this has worked for me, that you say to people that you're going to go work for, I know you are committed to my success. And my success looks like this. No one's going to tell you that they're not committed to your success. So now, right, who's going to say that? So now you got somebody in the game with you, in the journey with you to really help you be successful. And so I just cannot stress that enough. Take the risk, have a parachute, bring somebody along with you that's really going to be, preferably your manager or someone at that level that's going to be committed to your success. And it's okay. You're going to make mistakes. Just keep your personal brand intact. If your personal brand is intact, you can survive just about anything.
That's good. You're mentioning risk. And Martina, that's one thing I read about you. When you decided to jump back into the workforce and you were going for the position at Hilti, your husband said to you, do they know you've only been in Home Depot twice?
Yeah. I mean, I tell young people all the time, say yes as often as you can in your career. I lived in 7 different countries. I've worked in pretty much every function in business. So business development, marketing, sales, operations. I 29 years old, put in charge of a film manufacturing plant. I'm not an engineer, don't know anything about a plant, don't know anything about operations, but probably learned more through that experience. As Kellyanne said, you grow in ways that you can't even imagine. And so taking some risk makes sense. And with this Hilti thing, yeah, I'm not a do-it-yourselfer. Although I'm going on the build, so we're gonna build this house, but I'm not a do-it-yourselfer by nature. And so to run a tool company, the thought is, well, how could I possibly do that? And the safe way to take risk, I would say there's a great book called The Female Advantage. And I want to say, the name's going to come to me, the author, but it's called The Female Advantage. But it says, build your web. That's what she talks about, females in business, that we manage somewhat differently, that we build our web. And who's in your web? It's your cheerleader, it's your critic, it's your, your sponsor, it's your expert, and if you do a good job finding who those women are, build your web around you, then all of a sudden the risk doesn't seem so scary. And you will find yourself being in other people's webs. You won't even know they picked you, but they'll be leveraging you for something. And I love that concept. So that was when I said, okay, I can do this. I can run a tool company. Let's go. So.
Yeah, look, kudos to you. That takes a lot of courage to do that. So I love, but I laughed so hard. Do they know you've only been in Home Depot twice? And then
yeah, and he said, and if you're only there to pick paint, Martina, it doesn't count.
I love that. Okay, so I am going to ask for our audience to go ahead and start submitting your questions. We're going to start taking some audience questions here momentarily. So go ahead and start putting those in the chat. We'll try to get to as many as possible within our allotted time. I want to switch to, we've mentioned COVID-19, the pandemic, quite a few times today. Obviously, everybody has had to make mental shifts. I think the word right now is pivoting. We have had to pivot in some shape, form, or fashion. Women are rapidly leaving the workforce, and I did not know this, but 100% of jobs lost in December were women. That is a shame. And women of color were impacted the hardest. So anyone can take this question, but what are some tangible ways to help support women during this challenging time? If there's anybody that wants to jump in on that one.
Well,
Jay,
go ahead.
Oh,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Yeah, so I think one of the most important thing is this small little thing that we could do to check in. So that, I mean, because everyone's situation is different and unique. And what really helps is if someone's checking in on them and asking, how are you doing? And then offer support after that. But just having someone to check in on you, to know that someone cares for you and that you're not alone is just a really important leadership tool that we don't use enough.
That's good. Yeah. I have a sweatshirt that I wear that says, check on your strong friends. And we often do not, right? So I love that. Okay, I'm sorry, Kellyanne.
Oh, no, I mean, I think it's really as simple as that, isn't it? Right. I mean, I think that people need to know that other people are looking out for them. And the simple act of checking in can go such a long way. And, as somebody who leads the HR function and is now responsible for the people side of our business, it's also just like flexibility in time and space. Like the space part has been kind of handled, but really think about how if you're a leader, you can give some flexibility in time, because that's I think what's driven a lot of women to either choose to leave the workforce or not be able to come back into it because they're dealing with homeschooling, they're dealing with other pressures at home, and they just can't make it work. And so we've been trying to explore different ways to allow for more of that flexibility in time, because I really think that gift is what's going to keep people engaged. And it's funny, it doesn't have to be an overarching policy. It could be a moment in time that you recognize, but whatever it is, people really appreciate being given that grace. And so that's something that we've thought a lot about. And a great example is last week with the crazy storms that we had, the ice storms. We know a lot of people didn't have power. Instead of saying, okay, well, you've got to take your PTO for the time you didn't work, we said, you know what, forget it. Like, this is your time. Take care of what you need to take care of. We're going to be back at it as soon as we can. And you're going to get paid for that time, and your PTO bank is going to stay the way that it is. And I didn't think of it in the moment as being such a huge act for especially a lot of the women in our team member population, but it spoke volumes to them about how much we cared. about their well-being in that moment in time. So seek moments like that if you can, to try to give people a little bit of that time back. And I think that that could really help women in particular.
Kelly, and seeing how you take care of the people at your job, I'm just going to assume that out of all of our viewers, there's going to be a lot of people applying for the Mr. Cooper group.
Are hiring too, so bring it on. We're hiring like crazy right now, so please come at it.
Okay, great. Okay, go ahead, AJ.
I do think it's important what Kellyanne is talking about, and you know, I mentioned that I'm at Bank of America. I think this is when companies really demonstrate their compassion for their teams, because companies are made up of people who actually help you to execute on their vision, right? And so now is the time, if you see just like really, you know, some companies may not have the power to be able to do some of the things, right, Kellyanne, that your company can do and my company can do and others, but just some of the the human part of this is free in many cases. And so it's a great opportunity for you to look. I mean, for Bank of America, we said no one's affected in 2020. There's no impact to people's employment. That created a woosah moment. And we had people who had graduated from college and were like doing MBA assignments with us. And all of those people who had depended on coming to work were able to come to work, and they didn't have to worry about. So there's a whole nother, the people that were employed were impacted with everything that happened in COVID, but all of the recent college graduates and all of the people who had these dreams and aspirations, potentially assignments, really bright and talented people. If any of them are here listening, I would say, don't give up, you know, find opportunities. And it may not be the dream job that you thought you wanted initially, but step into, you know, your space. And then for those people who were affected, I know personally, I've reached out, and whenever there's Kellyanne, if there's opportunities and things, reach out to people. Even if you hear about a role or something, just reach out to people. I post things sometimes, because some people are not going to tell you they're struggling. Some people are not going to tell you that their spouse is struggling, their extended family now lives with them, because of pride. And so, you know, and you need to do it in a way that's not offensive, because some people may be offended, but we just need to care for each other more and more. And then just one last comment, Lady J, I think I am participating in a lot more of these types of discussions across the country, across several groups, and it's about women. And so as bad as everything that has happened in the last 12 months to us, I am not so sure that we would be having as many of these thoughtful engagement discussions with women and with people in general. So as bad as it is, hopefully when we get to the other side of this, we're all better as a result of it.
AJ, you're exactly right. I mean, what this has caused us to do is reevaluate structural things in our businesses that are maybe not as hard to change as we thought, because we've had this living pilot now for a year. But you know, there's a saying that, you know, a workplace that's great for women is great for everyone. You know, I'm a CEO for change with the Catalyst organization, and that's their primary tenet. If we can make workplaces great for women, they're going to be great for everyone. And I think we've had these moment in time adjustments, and hopefully we lived up to the possibility that we had as leaders of businesses. But now the next step is to say, let's look structurally at how do we institutionalize some of this? How do we make sure that we're more flexible and then as a result, more attractive to keep those women in the workforce in the future? And it's just so exciting. And I agree 100%. We are having conversations we've been begging to have. And now it's very natural and very safe to have them. And that's, I think, going to be the lasting gift of the pandemic.
Yeah, even AJ mentioned earlier how women, we typically find it more difficult to ask for help. And now we feel more open to do it, as you said, Martina. So that's a great segue into one of our audience members' questions. It says, women typically have a harder time asking for help and even building their, what we call web, right? So how has anyone on the panel personally asked for or gotten mentors, sponsors, cheerleaders in your career? Yeah, that's an amazing question. What is that approach? What does that look like? Does anybody have any experience with that?
Yeah.
Everybody's like, yes, we all do. Let's see. We'll start with you, Martina. Go ahead.
So yeah, I think you typically what happens is both the mentor and the mentee are surprised at how eager each one of them is to engage. So that would be the first thing I would say. I have people ask me all the time, hey, can I work with you on this? Or would you be my mentor? Or could we set up some time and ask questions? I'm always so incredibly flattered that you think I'd have anything to say that you would want to hear. So I always say yes, right? And I think on the other hand, on the mentees, I don't know which side I'm on, but I think the same thing is true with I can learn just by listening to the questions that people ask me. Then that actually helps me get better in my job too. So I would say, first of all, don't be shy. And I'm about the same age as AJ. We're so happy to be able to see how many powerful, amazing women are coming up behind us, that we are always able to help. And then if sometimes it's actually surprising how people want to use you, so you don't have to guess, or anticipate or pre-think how that relationship is going to evolve. Just ask, and people will be willing to help. What you need to think about is, hey, if I have a whole bunch of people who can help me on this particular thing, but I know that I'm, weaker in another area, then move outside your normal web. Just that would be my only piece of advice. Look outside your normal web of contacts and see if you can extend yourself each time to make your web a little bigger.
Oh, that's great. Great advice. Would anybody else like to? Okay, go ahead.
When you say the hardest part, like I think when the person asks the question, they don't even know how to start. I think the hardest part, right? Even today, when I meet with a mentor that's mentoring me, and I've been with the firm almost 25 years, I consider myself to be, pretty established. I'm still nervous. Like, what am I going to talk to them about? What's the topic? Are they going to ask me something I didn't know? I just want whoever asked that question, it becomes more normal to engage with mentors and sponsors, but don't put yourself into a tizzy in terms of what do I literally say. Some people say, well, do I just ask to be a mentor, you to be a mentor? How do I do it? Do I have to do, I think the best way to do it, Martina, I agree with everything that you said, but it is a reciprocated relationship. And I think if you go into it that way, I learned so much, especially when it's people outside of the work I do every day. That is one of the most beneficial relationships. And so I always recommend when people pick up the phone and want to schedule time, first, don't try to meet with them every week. It's not going to work. You need to say, can I meet with you quarterly? Can I meet with you twice a year? Don't be overly assumptions, because they probably have other people they're mentoring. But when you meet with them, you should ask them what is important to them and what are they working on? Mm-hmm. Because I think what's interesting when you are being mentored, people are anxious to hear what your thoughts are around whatever it is they're working on. And, typically you get pulled into, well, you can shadow me in a meeting, or you can help me on this project, or what do you think about this? And so it is, believe me, both people benefit from it, but don't overthink it, and just kind of enjoy it. And, don't try to send your bio and ask for a job in the first session. I think you really should just kind of woosah a little bit and take advantage. Kellyanne, I would imagine you do this on a pretty consistent basis in your role. People are probably trying to get to you every day, knowing your role in the company as well.
I love what both you and Martina have said, because it is a reciprocal relationship. And what I would tell people is not every mentor-mentee relationship is one that's meant to last a lifetime. I see that Martina's got one for 20 years, and that's an amazing thing to have, but that's something that happens organically and naturally. And so what I would suggest for people, start small. Like it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming for me when somebody asks me to mentor, because I don't want to steer them wrong, and I don't know what I have to say is necessarily going to help. So just ask for 30 minutes. And especially in today's Zoom world, just be like, hey, can I have a 30-minute coffee with you? And that can really turn into something that's pretty beautiful. The other thing I would say is mentorship, sponsorship, your web, so to speak, can be found in a lot of different places. It doesn't always have to be somebody that you aspire to be necessarily. It could be a peer. It could be somebody who's in a different field that's really interesting to you. There's a lot of ways that you can can get a lot of great insights and learn a lot and grow yourself if you keep that network really expansive. And I even have some women that I talk to that used to work for me because they give me perspective on my leadership style that I wouldn't get from somebody else. So really think about this as a diverse group of people with a diverse set of experiences that represent a lot of different communities. And I think that then you start to get a really great mix of people that can steer you in the right direction.
Tier, would you like to chime in on this one as well?
Yeah, I'd love to add a couple of points to amplify. So I agree with everything that AJ, Martina, and Kellyanne have shared. I'll just add, I think it's a mindset thing too. Approach the conversation and the relationship with authenticity. Because when you think about it, we're all just human beings. You know, we have the same needs, the same wants. We all want to belong. Right. And so don't try to be somebody that you're not. Don't, you know, just be you and be willing to share your story. And I think the authenticity that will come through will be helpful in terms of, you know, in building the deeper relationship. And the other thing I'll add is, you know, a great way to get help is to help others. And so when people see that you're the type of person who's also extending trust and extending your support of others, then people are more likely to want to help you as well. Because I think too often we fall into the trap of self-orientation in terms of, yes, we're afraid to ask, but we're only thinking about ourselves and what we need. And so I think just keeping that in check is really important because it'll come through in the conversations.
I love that. And I'm actually been taking notes this whole time, but it kind of answers what our next question would be, which was, how do you keep those relationships alive? And what I'm hearing is you're saying first start small, you know, because I think in our minds, mentorship is kind of along the way that it was when you were a kid with big brothers and big sisters or whatever you were involved in. It's like, I'm going to see them every Saturday. Right. And so things are different as an adult. And when especially when your mentor has a career and a family. So you're saying maybe meet with them quarterly or twice a year, maybe ask for a 30-minute coffee, make sure that you're helping someone else as well, because people that are in positions to mentor you are also watching all of these things as well. So I love that. Starting small. We're going to take our last question from our audience. And then I definitely want to talk about silver lining really quick. You know, just leave us with one positive thing that you guys, the silver lining of the pandemic and everything that, you know, everybody has been facing for the last year. But the question is, what are 3 keys to being successful in a small start to business? 3 keys to being successful.
I'll offer up the first one. And I think this is true for anything, and that's hard work.
Oh, that's good.
It's hard work. Don't ever underestimate the power of good old-fashioned hard work. And I know, especially if you're a small business leader, that's something that is very true and probably real to your spirit, but hard work.
That's good.
I would say, go ahead, AJ.
I'm sorry, Martina. Identify trusted advisors and leverage that. There's lots of resources if you're a small startup or you're trying to figure out what you want to do. Leverage trusted advisors. I know our cousins and aunts and cousins, and I all mean well, in terms of help folks sometimes. But just like, you know, when you think about home ownership, everybody still thinks you have to have 20% down for a home. That's not true.
Right.
And so you want to get relevant, new, trusted advice. And I'm not talking about people you have to pay for. There's resources available, leverage them. So there's a think tank for you to, and they're used to talking to people to help people through that. A lot of those exist at the SBA.
Good information.
Martina, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to speak.
Yeah, no. So I was thinking along the same lines. I was going to frame it in the term of be humble. Like nobody expects you to know all these things, you know, that you need to know. And I don't care if it's a big business or a small business, but there's a lot of power in saying, I don't know anything about this, so can you help me? And there's a lot of loneliness in pretending like you do know, and then, you know, feeling that sick kind of feeling in your tummy when you know it's not working right. And so I think whether it's a small business or a new role, there's a lot of power in just saying, I don't know. Can you explain this to me?
That's good. That's good. The humility. And Tier?
I think they've said it. I mean, I was my point was going to be, yeah, you don't have to know everything. You don't have to have all the answers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to also be in community, right? So collaborate with other small business owners as well, even if they're not in your industry. So being in community, I think, helps build resilience.
That's awesome. Hard work, leveraging trusted advisors, being humble, being in community. Kellyanne, you even mentioned earlier that, you know, some of your, I don't know if we would call them mentors, but people that you seek advice and information from are people that actually used to work from you, right? Which means to me, always remain teachable, right? We never get to a point in a position or to a level where we do not stop learning. So I think that is also very important. I cannot tell you, there were so many questions. I am so sorry, everybody. We were not able to get to all of your questions. We could literally be on this call until about 4 o'clock this afternoon because you all have so much amazing information to share. I do not think that I've ever hosted a panel that has literally been this transparent. I know that I am going to walk away from this today a better person. I know that you guys have blessed hundreds of people out there as well. So I want to kind of wrap this up by allowing everybody to share this silver lining, right? Again, 2020, 2021, we have had to make a lot of adjustments and it's been difficult. So what is the silver lining in your own lives this past year? Like, what have you learned? If you could take away maybe one or two things that you're going to continue once COVID-19 is over. If anybody would like to share that, Tira, I'll start with you.
Yeah, yes. So there's been a lot of silver linings for me, and in particular, having unscheduled time to spend with family. And for me, it's with my husband and also with each of my 4 boys. So a few years ago, I started doing one-on-ones with each of my boys to give dedicated quality time to get to know each other and just have conversation. And our lives were very scheduled, you know, with sports, with school, with work, community things. And so when the pandemic happened, a lot of that stopped.
Yeah.
And just having the free time, the free unscheduled time to just be present and let things happen has been phenomenal. And one thing I'll share is with my 10-year-old, my youngest son, we started a new tradition that we call walk and talk. And he just absolutely loves going on a daily walk and talk with mom. And sometimes it's just silent. We just walk together, you know, and sometimes it's talking about some really serious subjects and asking each other about life questions. And so I think for me, what I will continue to create more for myself is that the unscheduled time to just be.
That's awesome. AJ?
I think it's what we talked about earlier, the whole scheduling, doing a better job of scheduling and giving some me time and some time to give positive energy. So that would be the biggest thing. I think I've worked, you know, both ends. I just thought working longer hours and trying to get everything done in 24 hours made sense. And so I think for me, the biggest thing is I couldn't do it because, you know, when you only walk 10 feet, you could literally be working from, you know, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. very easily with our current environment. And so for me, it was forcing myself to have the balance, and very similar to you, Tier, like spend more time with my kid. My daughter's going to go to college and I just need to spend more time with her. And so I reprioritized some things. So that was the silver lining. And then in general, I think health of my family. This situation shook everyone around just overall health and care and making sure you go to your appointments, take time for women, take time for all the appointments and things that we need to go to that we keep pushing off because we take our kids to the doctors versus us. So it's been all of that self-care, I think, which was a silver lining, enforcing that for me and my family.
That's awesome. Kellyanne?
So, you know, a little bit of a different way of thinking about things from a career perspective. For me, the silver lining has been that I've become so much more brave. And I think that I was brave before, but To put into context, I'd taken on this new role in 2019. I had never led an HR function before in my life. And I had major imposter syndrome. You want to talk about not feeling like you belong? That was me every single day. And then the pandemic happened. And what that did was break norms. So suddenly I was in this job doing something, and I was not alone. Nobody else had ever dealt with something like this before too. And you carry that forward. And now here we are with norms broken all over the place. And it's giving us an opportunity to reimagine what it means to be a woman in the workforce, reimagine what it means to work, period, and to be a part of something that's that meaningful and that powerful and that exciting is a huge silver lining to me. So scary, really tough times, but in all of that, I think we're going to come out to the other side much stronger if we take this moment and run with it.
Amen. Amen. All right, Martina.
I could not say that better. I took over as the CEO of Hilti last January. So yeah, best year of my life. But as a female leading a tool company, I would not have been able to drive the amount of change that we've been able to drive without the pandemic. Then people would have thought, oh, it's the female CEO and she's touchy-feely and she wants to talk about people, and it would have taken so much longer. So we are so lucky to have had this moment in time. And personally, I like sleeping in my own bed. In 2019, I traveled 42 weeks of the year. And not only am I not going back to that, I am going to spread my wings and shelter everyone in my business so that they don't have to go back to that. I think as we think about climate change and what we've learned about, the quality of life things that Tyr talked about, we just need to be smart and stop saying yes to stupid business travel. So those are my silver linings.
I love it. I want to personally say, I think each of you are incredible, and nothing short of incredible. And not only incredible because you're successful, but incredible because you are vulnerable. And I believe that your openness today definitely changed so many lives. This was powerful. This was inspiring. And again, I'm watching the comments in the chat. You have relit the light that was dimmed or that had gone out for so many. And sometimes that's all we need is that relatability. Like y'all, I wish you could understand. I've hosted thousands of these. I need you to understand. I've done this for many years, and I've never seen a chat light up the way that it has. Normally people want to hear asking questions for themselves and trying to, but you guys literally, everybody's just like overwhelmed with excitement. So I think that everybody that was on here today watching is ready to go conquer the world. So I like to personally thank each of you for taking your time out today to join us. I want to personally thank Dallas Area Habitat for Humanity. I think that Women Build Dallas 2021 is going to go down in the record books. Okay. So just know that this was recorded today. It will be replayed back on YouTube. They will be posting that. At this time, I'd like to invite the VP of Development, Ms. Carmen Holmes, back on to join us to wrap us up, so that we can close out for today. And again, thank you all for your time. And it has literally been my pleasure being the moderator for today. And now I feel like I know you all. So we're friends now. You have no choice. Okay. You all are my friends. And I appreciate each and every one of you for today and all the words that you shared. So at this time, Miss Carmen, I am going to pass it over to you.
Well, I'm grateful to have had my video turned off because I'm pretty sure I have mascara all over my face.
I know.
I mean, girls, this was so good. It was so inspiring. And again, I cannot tell you, if you want to make a difference in the life of a woman trying to make a better life for her and her family, participate with Women Build. This was an investment on everyone's part of their time. We gave energy and we had energy returned 100-fold. So I am so thankful for each of you, for you, Lady Jade, for each of the panelists, for Dallas Area Habitat for providing this platform to talk about women and women's empowerment. Just an amazing time together. If you want to learn more, and I have to say this, my job, it's not that I have to say it, I want to say it. If you want to learn more about Dallas Area Habitat for Humanity and Women Build Dallas, please visit our website. I know that Liz Phillips, who is our incredible behind the scenes marketing guru, but also panel panel runner and so much more extraordinaire. She's going to post that site for us. But if you want to know more about it, you can join as an individual fundraiser. You can join as a sponsor. Your company can be involved. You guys can come build on the build site. You can come build in the wall shop. You can raise money for families who are led by women, single head of household, by single moms, by women of color. These women, y'all, are working hard. And this is a way to reach out your hand and pull somebody else along. It takes a little bit of your energy. It may take setting up a fundraising page and calling our development team to say, hey, how do I do this? And how do I share my link? But we would love for you to be involved in Women Build Dallas. It's an important conversation, and it has grown exponentially from last year. So grateful for AJ's leadership and courage in getting this started. And then again, grateful for Kellyanne to be the chair this year and Martina to be the chair next year. And Tier, that doesn't necessarily commit you, but we can have a conversation about that, about 2023. So I'm so amazed by the conversation. I'm so amazed by the chat. Please consider being a part of Women Build Dallas. It is a wonderful movement. It's a wonderful initiative. It's a wonderful conversation that is going to bring benefit to so many. So during the pandemic, I just have to give a little bit of a shout out to our homeowner education team. During the pandemic, they all had to pivot, right? We talked about that word. They all had to pivot to take all of our homeowner education classes online. And I tell you, we doubled the number of families that we were able to serve and able to teach and able to provide really incredible financial literacy curriculum. We partnered with so many people throughout the pandemic to continue their journey to homeownership. So we want to continue to make that possible. And you can help us continue to make that possible for so many women and for so many families. So please visit our website, dallasareahabitat.org/women-build-dallas/. There's lots of ways to get involved. So please give us a shout. Thank you so much for being on the panel today, for participating in the discussion, for chatting your thoughts. Our next event is going to be March the 12th. It's going to be a DIY and pre-build pep rally. So please watch for the invitation and make plans to join us for that event as well. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. I know that we will all have a better day for having been part of this panel discussion. So thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.